the last time we focused on the international petroleum contracts, which we tried to analyze comparative study on different types of the international petroleum contracts. Today, I would like to concentrate on more renewable energy, because since that whole political and economic situation is changing in a fast way, that very important shift is happening in the world from the perspective of energy production. Then now the world is changing in a very fast way from traditional petroleum energy to a more renewable energy sector. Today's guest lecture structure is followed. The first point, I would like to talk about more general points on renewable energy. The second very important is international obligations on renewable energy now, such as the Kyoto Agreement, protocol, and the Paris Agreement. Can you please switch off somebody is switch off the speaker?
Okay, I will check for the to unmute. Class Ramos Tasliting Simanjunta. Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much. Then I will try to give you case studies on the European Union and Kazakhstan's perspective regarding the development of the renewable energy. Then I will talk about more about the current challenges which we have now regarding the transition from traditional to renewable energy. Maybe some of you, dear students, already know about the renewable energy types. It's getting more popular now around the world since since that all economic changes is happening. That's why due to the environmental changes, due to the climate change matters, renewable energy, development of renewable energy is increasing. That's why we see now mostly 4 types of renewable energy. It is a wind energy, solar energy, and the hydro, and the bioenergy. Mostly now popular is solar and hydro energy. Wind energy also is developing in a very fast track. general term that we have renewable or green energy is energy is from energy resources that are renewable, inexhaustible on a human scale. That the basic principle of using renewable energy is to extract it from the constantly occurring processes in the environment or in the renewable organic resources. For example, we use petroleum, oil, or gas, which are exhaustible resources, and also they have a pollution scale is very high. In renewable energy, it is more environment friendly type of energy. I'd like to talk about a bit more world trend, which we have now, because of the changing whole political and the economic situation. According to the International Energy Agency data, the global energy crisis may be ushered in the beginning of the end of the fossil fuel era, because the momentum behind clean energy transitions is now sufficient for global demand for coal, oil, and the natural gas to all reach a high point before the 2013. Now, the traditional energy, the share of the traditional energy sources, such as the coal, oil, and the natural gas, is around 80%. And it is an expectation that this share will decrease by 2030, around 73%. It means that share of the renewable energy will increase by 2030, and all of the states is doing steps and efforts to make it happen. We, of course, know that demand for fossil fuels, as we see, the traditional energy is still strong in recent years, but the deployment of low emissions alternatives, the rate at which new assets that use fossil fuels are being added to the energy system has slowed because of the, as we know, sales of cars, vehicles with internal engines are well below where the before the COVID-19 pandemic. As we see that around the world now is a trend which happening, using the engine transition from engine cars to more electric cars. That's why it is happening, this situation around the world, this trend. If we see generally the renewable energy, 80% of the renewable energy comes from the mostly solar energy. Of course, according to the International Energy Agency data, that the world wholly need to go much faster, much to meet the climate and the energy security challenges and the sustainability goals. As we know that mostly the situation in the energy sector is which factors which affecting to the transition from the petroleum to renewable is mostly due to the dynamics of the economic development of states, which we see like the states development in Asia, mostly in China, the India, developing states which consuming most of the energy. Secondly, energy security issue, which we have, which was important mostly for every state to have a sufficient energy sources and to maintain energy security for the population of the state. Electricity, heating, or fuel still very important for every state. And we see the increased energy consumption due to the economic development of states. And as we know, the exhaustible resources of the fossil fuels, traditional sources, it is also affecting. And we see now political situation around the world, which we now see, which affects also the supply of the fossil fuels around the world. It is now war between Russia and the Ukraine, which affecting the whole European Union states due to the shortage of the energy resources. As we know, Russia is the main supplier of the energy to European states, and the situation is also affecting to European states. And we see that now is war in Middle East as well, affecting to the, for example, the oil price. All these factors, affecting to the transition from the traditional energy sources to renewable. And a very important factor is global population growth, as we see around the world. Of course, mostly in China and India, which consuming most of the energy consumption. And climate change, which we have now, it is a very sensitive and important topic. Climate change, environmental concerns, sustainable development of the states. It is now on the agenda of the United Nations, and specifically on the agenda of the developed states. These factors are now influencing the whole changes, whole transition from fossil fuels, traditional energy sources to renewable energy. why for actually lawyers, why is the situation is important? Because for energy lawyers who are practicing the law in the sector of energy is also kind of a transition, because most of the lawyers is now trying to have a consulting and dispute resolution, consulting the infrastructure projects in the energy sector, mostly in renewable energy sector, and because it as every infrastructure project requires the very cost incentive, very complex infrastructure projects. Since many lawyers are interested in this sector, and I'd like to talk about more international agreements, which now as let's say that more basic foundations for this transition trend from petroleum to renewable energy. The first international agreement which has a very importance for the development of international obligations for states was the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, which was adopted in 1992. This convention recognized that change in the Earth's climate and the adverse effects are common concern of humankind around the world, and concerned that human activities have substantially increasing the atmospheric concentrations of greenhouse gases, that these increases enhance the whole natural greenhouse effect, that this will result on the average additional warming of the Earth's surface and atmosphere, and they may adversely affect the natural ecosystems and humankind. Also, this convention that recognizes that states should enact effective environmental legislation that will set environmental standards, management objectives, and priorities that could apply in states from the perspective of economic and social cost. This actually convention was a basic foundation for further agreements, as we see that it is always difficult to adopt such kind of international agreement, because there are always different views even in the United Nations. Some of the states favor for the transition from traditional energy sources to renewable, but some of the states still trying to have a barrier to this transition, because since that traditional energy sources are main source of kind of economic development, and they're trying to cut like greenhouse gases and the concentration in the atmosphere, it will affect the economic development, maybe slow down the economic development. That's why states do not have kind of united opinion on this. Since United Nations Convention from 1992, it was a Kyoto Protocol, which also very important document on international level, which actually extended the United Nations Convention on climate change. That means that state parties should reduce the greenhouse gas emissions based on the scientific consensus on the global warming and other emissions which affecting negatively to climate. But it was just a protocol which did not impose very strict obligations on states. That's why it took many years to establish a kind of international agreement which will oblige all states to accept these environmental and the climate change challenges and meet sustainable environmental goals. After many years negotiations between states, it was a very important agreement signed in 2015. It is a Paris Agreement. Since Paris Agreement actually was very important agreement, which set up very strict obligations on states to meet environmental goals. This agreement was approved by 195 countries. It replaced the Kyoto Protocol of 1997. Then established this agreement very clear and strict obligations on states to meet the climate change goals. I would like to just briefly talk about the key provisions of this agreement. The first is provision, I say, that Paris Agreement established that we should not allow the average temperature on the planet to rise above 2 Celsius temperature relative to the pre-industrial area levels, but if possible, reduce it to 1.5 Celsius. It is a very important task for states to maintain and to reduce the whole global temperature. And the states need to, establish, based on the Paris Agreement, the internal legislations, and they make efforts to meet this challenge. Another key provision was between 2050 and the 2100 to limit greenhouse gas emissions from human industrial activities to levels that trees, soil, and oceans can naturally process. And every 5 years, the contribution of each individual state to reduce harmful emissions into the atmosphere. And also very important point which made by Paris Agreement was that developed countries should allocate the money to a special climate fund to help less developed countries to deal with the effects of the climate change. For example, the natural disasters, rising the sea levels, and the transition to the use of the renewable energy sources. The whole point, if we say, is that these international agreements should allow states to combat with climate change issues, because as we see, rising the temperature, rising the sea level due to the climate change is mostly happening because of the greenhouse gas emissions, which mostly comes from the use of the traditional energy sources, such as the coal or petroleum or other kind of sources. That's why these factors which affecting the climate changes shall be curbed. And based on these international agreements, each individual state, based on the Paris Agreement, make efforts to stop this climate change consequences. It is not easy task because we know that industrial states, for example, the United States and China, initially were against this Paris Agreement, because when just what was the logic? Logic is when you start to decrease the emissions, it will happen to the economic development. because economic, development mostly affected by the, huge industrial production of goods. That's why these states mostly using this as a fuel, mostly traditional energy sources, which result in the high emissions. If we'll cut these emissions, it of course will affect to the economic development of states. That's why China and the United States had a kind of very opposite position in comparison with the European Union states. At the same time, most of the states which suffering from the climate change are in favor to accept these obligations and to cut the emissions from the traditional energy sources. If you have any questions, please ask. Based on this topic, I would like to give like comparative case study for your understanding of the topic. First, I would like to give talk about more European Union. Then, from my experience about this, about the Kazakhstan perspective. As we know, European Union, which consists several West and East European states, always were energy dependent to maintain the economic development. These states are mostly consuming the energy from Russia, from Central Asian states, and also from energy from Africa states. Since that European Union has a very shortage of natural resources from traditional sources like oil or gas, etc., coal. Mostly these states importing the energy from Russia, from, for example, Central Asian countries, and from Africa. That's why energy is like strategic sector for whole European states, and as they always like interested to have a more safe and efficient energy sources to maintain the economic development of state. since the situation was always difficult between European Union and other states regarding this energy supply, and due to the factor of the climate change, and European Union adopted several very strategic documents regarding this transition from traditional energy sources to renewable energy. The first document which we have is the Single European Act 1986. Then 1990 6 and 1998, the European Union electricity directives. Then the 2001 and the 2003 is the renewable directives. And the most important is the 2007, the Lisbon Treaty. Also, the most important document which was adopted is a clean energy for all Europeans package, which 2019, and the European Green Deal also was a very important document. Actually, European Union, by adopting these very strategic documents, proposed policy options for energy security. And the European Union has prioritized the goal of securing affordable and low carbon energy. Through 2015, the European Commission adopted the Energy Union package, which contains the framework looking climate change policy. And as I mentioned, the very important was the document package is a clean energy for all Europeans. You know that according to this goal, this document, the goal of the European Union is to achieve at least 40% cuts in the greenhouse gas emissions, and at least 32% renewable sources of the energy consumption, and 32.5% is the energy efficiency by 2030. This is a very ambitious goals of the European Union to meet these goals. And this package document contains 8 legislative acts. So one of them is which adopted in 2018, which which following the revision of the 2009 Renewable Energy Directive. This directive aimed to increase the use of energy from renewable sources to comply with commitments of the European Union under the 2015 Paris Agreement. This document, 2018, actually defined several fundamental rules for the European Union member states to achieve the goals which set by Paris Agreement. The first very important is this directive recognizes that different renewable energy potentials and the different support schemes at the national level that states should accept and establish, and the European member states should design effective national measures for the respective contributions to the European Union's 2013 target for renewable energy, and therefore the national targets that they have set for themselves. Second, that policies of the European member states supporting renewable energy should be predictable and stable, and they should avoid any frequent and retroactive changes in the national legislation. Also, this document, said that policy unpredictability and instability have a direct impact on the capital financial costs, therefore on the costs of the project development. Moreover, this document addresses the lack of transparent rules and coordination between the European and the national authorization bodies, acknowledging that administrative procedures is a major barrier for international energy trade and the development. In order to meet these energy transition goals, the European states now using different types of measures which could help them to reduce emissions. The first, maybe the mostly widespread measure, which most of the European states accepted, is incentive or support schemes to support the renewable energy. The second is a shutdown of the coal plants and trying to stop and oil and the gas exploration and the production operations in European Union territory by 2040. It depends on the states to accept these measures. For example, we can now see that most of the European states try to incentivize or give subsidizing the tariffs for the energy coming from the renewable energy. For example, notable examples are Spain, Italy, and the Czech Republic, which accepted these support schemes. How it works, for example, electricity or heating coming from the petroleum traditional energy sources are much cheaper than the electricity or heating coming from the renewable energy, because that now is the renewable energy, more high cost capital than the traditional energy sources. What states are not doing? They're doing, subsidizing the tariffs for electricity, for example. Just let me simply explain to you. If, for example, electricity for kilowatt, if costs like $10 US dollar from the traditional energy sources, from renewable energy sources, electricity could cost around $15 USD dollar. What states do? States, subsidize these tariffs to make it affordable the electricity coming from the renewable energy. Subsidizing this $5 to make it affordable to the population, the renewable energy. Taking these measures, states try to, cut emissions coming from the traditional energy sources. Most of the states which accepted it, it is, as I mentioned, Spain, Italy, and the Czech Republic, which accepted these support schemes. Some of the states used to shut down the coal plants. The most notable example is Germany and the Netherlands. Which are trying to shut down the coal plants. For example, Germany, the national parliament adopted the coal exit law in July 2020. Therefore, set out the roadmap for phasing out the coal-based energy by end of 2038. And what states do as well, states doing trying to based on the law compensation which will be paid to these coal companies, coal producing companies, to shut down their plants. And they said kind of compensation structures which said that giving the incentives, for example, if coal producing companies shut down their plants by 2027, it provided this very good compensation mechanism. But after this 2027, for them is compensation is less than the companies by 2027. That's why has a different principles of compensation in Germany. The similar situation in Netherlands. 2019, the Netherlands adopted also the law prohibiting the use of the coal for production of electricity. After 2013, the law also targets 5-year coal-fueled power plants to shut down. And the Netherlands also agreed to pay compensations for companies which trying to shut down these coal plants. But it is very common that it brings arbitration disputes between the states and the companies affected by this law. For example, there are now arbitration disputes between Netherlands and coal companies. Several around 4 or 5 companies brought an international arbitration claim against the Netherlands due to the lack of compensation for closing the coal plants. If you don't mind, dear students, if we take 10-minute break, and I will come back and continue. I will just grab a coffee and come back. 10 minutes break, please.
Lalu kalian istirahat ya. Salsabila kalian istirahat. Halo, Salsabila. Istirahat kayaknya. Oh, panas. Pantas berkeringat tau ya.
Okay, thank you, moderator. Good morning, Ibu, Bapak, who attended this first session of a criminal law.
Sexual violence.
Today, I would like to share with all of us about the topic of legality of fetishism as the reason for criminal annulment in the cases of sexual violations. I think maybe some of us is not familiar with the fetishism because myself I also know about the fetishism when the case of viral in 2020 in Surabaya. That's the first time I realized that we have a big problem with this type of crime in a part of sexual violence. Oh yeah. I think first of all we have to know about what is the fetishism as a part of paraphilia. I just read my PPT because when I have to speak, it will be take 2 hours. So because we have very limited time, so I just read it. Yeah, okay. The number of sexual violations is on is concerning point. Among them is paraphilia or sexual deviations, and one form of paraphilia is fetishism. Paraphilia may be identified as a sexual deviation from an individual since the sexual motives are different from what's necessary and aligned with the societal norms. And paraphilia may take many forms, some of which are formally classified in the Guide to Mental Health classification and a diagnosis in Indonesia and the abbreviation of PPDGJ. Next, please. Yeah. Some of fetishism, not all part of fetishism, because if we look through the data, like in United States, some of the country in United States, they have a lot of cases of fetishism, and not all of them using the using the technology. But in my paper, I will focus on fetishism as a technology-based sexual offense. Yeah. First, we have to know about the definition of technology-based sexualities, refer to instance where technology is or becomes. The first one is the meaningful part of one's erotic experiences, life or self. And the second one, a significant object or subject toward which one's erotism is directed. According to the scholar from Germany, Dorin and Post, humans have consistently found innovative ways to access, enhance, and or expand intimacy through technological products.
dear students. If you don't mind, let's resume the class. Just continuing the main points which regarding this European Union states measures to combat climate change matters. We talked about the Germany and the Netherlands, which enacted the laws which tried to shut down the coal plants. The same, some of the states, for example, France and Italy, adopted the laws to end up the oil and gas operations. In the European territory, there is not much oil and gas sources, but some of the states has, just a small oil and gas fields. And due to the environmental considerations, many of the European states, such as France and Italy, enacted the laws to shut down these oil and gas fields. For example, in December 2017, French government parliament adopted legislation ending oil and gas exploration and production by 2014. In 2019, the French president signed a law which limits the greenhouse emissions by the closure of coal plants, also other highly polluting power plants, to achieve the Paris Agreement commitments. In 2022, and during the election campaign of the current president, Emmanuel Macron, he declared that France will be the first green nation and abandon oil, gas, and coal. It was his kind of election and declaration before re-election as a president of France. In every this kind of measures, inaction of the laws prohibiting oil and gas operations or shutdown of the coal plants, it's there is also kind of pressure by international investors who owns these plants, who owns these oil and gas fields. They warned the French government, saying that if the French government will not pay adequate compensation to these companies, they will bring arbitration claims against France. The same situation with Italy, for example. Italy is taking similar legislative measures to reduce exploration and the production of oil and gas within the territory. In February 2019, Italian parliament passed the law It imposes a moratorium on exploration permits and the new applications for production concessions for a period of 18 months. During this period, the Italian government will allocate areas for permitted oil and gas production, taking into account environmental issues. Environmental issues. For example, the area, I call it in Italy, the Ministry of Ecological Transition approved the plan for sustainable energy transition of sustainable areas. We call the PTSI, which limited the oil and the gas operations in certain territories, which resulted in a arbitration claim against Italy. In early 2017, the UK-based energy company Copper initiated the arbitration claim against Italy under the Energy Charter Treaty due to the state law prohibiting the oil and the gas operations in certain territories. Also, currently European Union states continuing to take regulatory measures toward sustainable development. Of course, this may entail the adoption of complex regulatory measures, including renewable energy promotion and the phasing out traditional fossil fuels. But the instability within the energy sector caused by this transition probably led to the increase in the regulatory risk for investors, like developing long-term energy projects within the European Union territories. Because between 2012 and the 2020, just 2015, sorry, European Union states faced an unprecedented number of claims from investors regarding the renewable energy support schemes, energy source support schemes revisions, because just for example, Spain faced around 58 arbitration claims from investors due to the vision of renewable energy support schemes. It is actually like huge problem. Because clear understanding, explaining simply. When states accepted the obligations under international agreements to promote renewable energy, many of the European states internally under the national legislation established different kind of like promotion schemes. As I said, for example, subsidizing tariffs, shutdown of coal plants, or etc. Yes, most of the problem happened regarding the subsidizing the tariffs. Because, for example, Spain, Italy, Czech Republic, and other states, before the 2010 economic crisis, adopted many laws, legislation acts to promote the renewable energy, trying to subsidize the renewable energy tariffs from the government budget, but what happened, during the economic crisis, after the 2010, if you remember the situation in European Union 2014, for example, the Russian war against the Ukraine, Crimea territory, it led to the kind of energy crisis, led to the economic crisis in European Union. It led to the European states to revise the previously enacted laws. It affected to the stability of these support schemes, which adopted before. For example, before Spain or Italy government guaranteed certain kind of compensation of the tariffs, but after during the economic crisis, they revised the legislation acts and they tried to reduce the tariff costs. And there was a different, very kind of complex mechanisms of the subsidizing the tariffs, but the revising the legislation acts brought to the reconsideration of the support schemes. Of course, that energy producing companies, reduced their revenue. They lost the revenue due to this reduction of the subsidies. It is a. Do you hear me well? Sorry. Yes, students, do you hear me well?
Part of this,
Yes.
part of this entire.
Oh, okay, thank you. Reduced the revenue from the energy sources, from the selling the energy sources, and these governments, Spain or Italy, imposed additional taxes on these energy companies. Since it affected on their revenue, they started bringing the arbitration claims against the states. So it's requiring that they have to compensate the reduced tariffs and their costs. It was kind of for lawyers. It was a number of years, number of disputes, coming from investors against the European states. As I said, just against one Spain, around 58 international arbitration disputes due to this reconsideration of the tariffs and the subsidies. It's a kind of huge problem. Huge problem on the transition from traditional energy sources to renewable energy. Specifically, this topic is well discussed in the framework of the International Energy Charter Treaty, because many of the European states are members of the International Energy Charter Treaty. And the Energy Charter Treaty includes the provisions for the protection of investors' rights from unilateral changes, reconsideration of the laws, legislation acts, and etc. The investors, based on this like international agreement and Energy Charter Treaty, brought like claims against the states. It also affected to the, transition to renewable energy, because states, now more cautious to adopt legislation acts on transition to renewable energy. It is about this European Union case study, which we are now having the kind of huge problem due to these transition issues. It's for lawyers, it maybe it's good because many of the law firms, involved in these international disputes, trying to represent oil investors, companies, energy companies, or states, helping them, to defend their rights in international arbitration disputes. There is now, it's a more international public law topic, but huge kind of criticism based on this topic, because many of the lawyers, like professors, scholars, saying that it affected on the balance issue between the regulatory measures and the investment protection, because this balance is breached, because since that investors brought arbitration claims against states, it prevents the states to take measures on their own territory to adopt the legislation acts, or to revise or reconsider the legislation acts, because that it breaches the guarantees which provided before to investors. It's a kind of very hot topic in international law, which many scholars, discussing this topic and trying to find a solution. If you are interested in this topic, please let me know, because I also analyzed it and investigated this topic comprehensively regarding this balance issue between the regulatory measures and the investment protection. The second case studies as a comparative. I will just briefly give case study about Kazakhstan experience. That Kazakhstan is among the top 10 oil producing states, but notwithstanding that Kazakhstan has abundant mineral resources, Kazakh government is trying to pay real attention to the development of renewable energy. Is now 2013, the Kazakh president signed the order on the concept of transition of the Republic of Kazakhstan to green energy. in 2018 also adopted the National Development Plan, which aims to supply like 6% of total electricity from production from renewable sources by 2025. It is actually a huge shift for Kazakhstan, because most of the electricity and heating production comes from the oil and the gas resources, also the coal, because the oil and the gas resources are abundant in Kazakhstan territory. That's why for our government it's easier, much cheaper to produce electricity from traditional energy sources. But nevertheless, that Kazakh government trying to meet international goals, such as the Paris Agreement, which accepted some obligations to meet the climate change goals. Based on these international agreements, Kazakh government adopted the current support schemes for renewable energy, like wide range of support and the incentive mechanisms. For example, the guaranteed purchase of produced energy from renewable sources through the state electricity grid operating company, and the auction prices, and the investment preferences support as an exemption from custom duties, value added tax on imports, government income grants in the form of, for example, provision of land plots, equipment, and etc. And feed-in tariffs, which government is also adopted as a support scheme. There are a number of like regulatory measures, incentives to help the energy producers to be motivated to produce energy from renewable energy sources. For your understanding, to be clear, maybe in Indonesia also same situation is happening. Transition from traditional energy sources to renewable. For example, as an incentive mechanism, government accepted that national electricity company will guarantee the purchase of the renewable energy from producers. Also, we have a kind of feed-in tariff, which accepted in European Union mostly. It's subsidizing the tariffs from the renewable energy. We have a auction mechanism, which very complex mechanism. It starts from the choosing the land plot and the preparation of the project document. Then every energy producing company participates in the auction, which organizes of energy. What does it in auction for states, which subsidizing the tariffs? Important to have a tariff which acceptable for state as well and for investors. That's why energy producers who gives like much less price for for electricity wins the auction. It's a kind of downside auction. Then state Minister of Energy and the energy producing company signs the agreement, which considers and provides a list of incentives, feed-in tariffs, like a provision of land plot, and the exemption from duties, customs, taxes, etc., for the motivation purposes. Fortunately, we do not have now arbitration disputes on this field, because Kazakhstan is just newly adopted these regulatory measures and trying to give more motivation for energy producers. But in comparison with the European Union, in European Union is the situation is different. As I mentioned, they started much earlier, the energy transition period. Then now it's kind of stage that these states face it with arbitration claims by investors, and now changing these regulatory measures to in support schemes. This is a main discussion topics which I wanted to talk with you today, dear students. And what now is the current challenges, just briefly to discuss with you regarding this transition. The transition from traditional energy sources to renewable will happen anyway, and but it depends on the number of factors, of course, because abundance of the natural resources such as oil and gas, the affordable price for oil and gas, of course, will prevent the fast transition from traditional energy sources to renewable. But nevertheless, the situation is changing, since that states accepted the international obligations under the Paris Agreement to cut emissions and to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from production. And we see now the overall trend that car producing companies also using the production of electricity cars from, it's a kind of transition from engine cars to electricity cars. It's a huge shift in the world, in car market, as we see, because as we know, the automobile industry is the main consumer of fuel and the petroleum gas. That's why this huge shift from in car industry transition to electricity cars also affecting the whole industry, and many of the states are in favor of supporting these renewable energy sources. Then another challenge is technology, of course, because still the optimization of the costs and expensive technologies are main barrier to this transition. If that companies will produce more affordable equipments for producing the energy sources, it could be good because energy companies could allow, to get this equipment, and the capital cost price will be much lower, and will be more how to say, attractive the producing the energy from renewable energy sources. This is the kind of main barrier, because now is cheaper producing the energy from traditional sources, oil and gas, coal, than like buying the expensive equipments for production of energy from renewable energy. This is a kind of main barrier which every state and energy companies trying to solve in the near future. Also, of course, regulatory measures is very important on the national level, not just international level, and most important initiatives of these developed states. For example, the main industry state is the United States, has to be, very motivated to cut emissions. And China, of course, India, developing states, which main consumers of energy, also shall be more motivated to this transition from traditional to renewable energy. Despite that, for example, from Chinese perspective, despite that China's energy comes from mostly coal, oil and gas, they are doing like good shifts towards renewable energy. China also set very ambitious goals to meet renewable energy goals. And we hope so that these main like states will take sufficient measures to solve this problem. Generally, I finished my lecture, and I will be happy to answer your questions. If you have any questions, please. I will be happy to answer. Dear students, do you have any questions? Please let me know. Rosmalinda, I have generally finished my lecture. And if you have any questions or concerns, please let me know. I can address now. Yes, I just one question in the chat just. If a company is finding renewable energy, it can cause other impacts such as pollution and others. How can the law deal with these impacts that will arise? If I correctly understand your question, renewable energy producers also could have pollution problems. How can the law deal with these impacts that will arise? There is a kind of opinion, of course, that renewable energy also could have a impact consequences to environment. Of course, it has a less impact than the traditional energy sources, but it's more favorable than the traditional energy sources from the perspective of pollution. And the actually, but how to say, there is in setting up the renewable energy plants, the national law also considers the environmental requirements for renewable energy companies. Very also the high standards to comply with national environmental requirements. And of course that, for example, the environmental law, national environmental law establishes requirements to for renewable companies as well, to be more energy efficient, more environmental friendly, because as I correctly understand your question, you mean that renewable energy producing companies, for example, the wind energy or solar energy, also have a huge territories, could have a kind of consequences for environment, for climate as well. But this consequences is much less than the traditional energy sources. And there's a national environmental legislation also that regulates these impacts and the consequences of renewable energy producers. For example, as example, wind energy equipments say that it affects negatively to the birds, but it's a kind of analysis was, and environmental law, national environmental law, tries to regulate this sector. if I have not addressed your question, please you can clarify your question, and I can answer more in detail.
Yes, thank you, Bahdat. Class, any question? Are you still sleepy, classes? Still in the very morning, I think, Bahdat. So some students still look so sleepy. Any question? Is there any question? Okay, Salsabila is already respond. Okay, thanks, sir. Let me speak in Bahasa, Baghdad. Halo,
Yes.
halo. Ya, para mahasiswa sekalian, apakah masih ada pertanyaan? Mei, apakah ada pertanyaan? Jika tidak ada pertanyaan, there is no question, Baghdad. So I think, okay, so that is the last question, sir, from Salsabila. Would you like
Okay.
to answer that question?
Sure. The obstacle. It's a very good question. Thank you very much. Yes, you correctly mentioned that the main challenge and obstacle for transition is, as we discussed, it's high costs for energy, renewable energy equipments. And it is now, it's an accepted mechanism in the world now. Is the sharing of the risks, these high cost risks between the states and between the energy companies, because it is currently it is kind of difficult to produce the energy from just on the cost of the energy companies. It is very high capital incentive. That's why the states and the renewable energy producing companies are sharing their risks to support this energy production. As here you mentioned that, of course, it could be problems in the development of the energy sources, but usually before starting the work, it could conduct a comprehensive due diligence from technical point of view that this renewable energy will be produced and all the technical documents is very correct, but the losses, of course, could affect the economic sector of the state. It could have an impact, but not huge, but could have an impact, because states sets their own goals to meet the renewable energy production in their strategic documents, for example, in the also that states incentivize and motivate energy companies, could subsidize the tariffs, etc. It also the loss of the budget, that's why it is a kind of risk sharing between states and energy producing companies. Yeah, it could be not directly, but indirectly could impact on the whole economic sector of the state.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much, Baghdad. I think we are now of the class. Thank you very much, Baghdad. Would you like to take a picture together with us? Would close your PPT, then we take a picture. I will take the picture.
Thank you.
Untuk kelas, untuk para mahasiswa sekalian, mohon dibuka videonya biar diambil absennya. Baghdad, would you like to close the PPT?
Yes, just a second.
Okay. Okay. So I will count. Martin, if you take the picture, please. Also. 1, 2, 3. One more. Oh. Oh. So full screen. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Thank you very much. And I'm leaving for the
Thank you.
class. Thank you very much, Baghdad. See you,
Thank you.
in the next time.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Thank you, Mr.
Bye.
Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Thank you, sir.